For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the stars, wondering if they were alone. They built machines to scan the skies, sent signals into the dark, and dreamed of meeting others who lived out there. Then, one ordinary day, the stars answered. Massive ships, unlike anything humans had ever seen, appeared in orbit around Earth. These ships were smooth, shining, and silent, their size dwarfing even the largest human space stations. The world watched in silence, breath held, waiting to see what would happen. No attacks came. No threats were made. Instead, a message was broadcast, not just in English, but in hundreds of human languages, perfectly translated. We are the Galactic Union. We come in peace. We wish to speak. The world reacted with awe, fear, and excitement. World leaders came together. Scientists prepared translations, and humans welcomed the aliens carefully, with both curiosity and caution. The Galactic Union was a powerful alliance made up of many alien species, each one older and more advanced than humans. They had rules, order, and technology that looked like magic. But what surprised the Union the most was not Earth's technology, which they expected to be primitive, or its governments, which they assumed would be unstable. It was the humans themselves. The aliens found humanity strange but fascinating. Humans asked questions the Union had never thought of. They adapted to alien environments quickly, learning complex languages and systems in weeks. They smiled often, told jokes the Union struggled to understand, and even in serious meetings, they showed emotions freely. But one thing stood out the most. Every time the Galactic Union tested humans with small political tricks or subtle insults, the humans stayed calm. They would laugh, stay polite, and respond with a gentle phrase that soon became noticed across all Union channels. "Please don't make us mad." It was said softly, sometimes with a smile, sometimes during trade talks, sometimes after a slight offense. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even said with anger. Just calm. But the words had weight. Some aliens found it amusing, calling it a strange Earth saying. Others started collecting recordings of humans using the phrase. It wasn't used often, only when humans were pushed. And when it was used, they always backed off afterward, never reacting violently. So the Union decided it meant nothing. Just culture. Just words. One Union ambassador, a tall creature from a race called the Kalari, decided to test it. During a diplomatic meeting, he insulted Earth's ability to govern itself, calling humans unpredictable, wild, and mentally unstable. The human representative, a quiet woman named Dr. Elaine Frost, simply smiled and replied, "Please don't make us mad." Her voice didn't change. She didn't threaten or raise her tone. The meeting continued like normal. But a week later, the Kalari ambassador resigned. He didn't say why. He refused all interviews. His people pulled him out of the public eye, and he never appeared again. Rumors spread, of course, but no evidence ever surfaced. The humans did nothing openly. There were no records of action, no public response, just silence. Some species whispered that maybe the humans had warned him for real, but no one believed it seriously. After all, Earth was still new to space. How dangerous could they be? The Union kept its attitude. More tests came. Small blockades around Earth's supply routes. Delayed approvals for trade. Hidden surveillance on human colonies. Every time, the humans responded in the same calm way. They never fought. They never started conflicts. They just kept saying the same line. Polite, controlled, and strangely final. "Please don't make us mad." The aliens grew bolder, especially the Rilari, a proud and aggressive species known for military power. They believed Earth was weak and soft, relying too much on words and diplomacy. They saw the humans' warning as a bluff, a joke from a young race trying to act strong. Their leaders started speaking openly against Earth, calling humans arrogant and pretending to be dangerous. The Union listened but didn't act. Earth continued to grow silently, improving technology, expanding colonies, learning about alien systems, and offering help where needed. They earned respect from a few species who noticed their intelligence and calm patience, but most still thought of Earth as harmless, strange, emotional, maybe clever, but not truly dangerous. And then came the moment that changed everything. A Reluri fleet entered a human colony zone without permission. It wasn't an accident. They wanted to test Earth one last time. They ignored messages, crossed borders, and landed ships on the colony's moon. The humans, even then, tried to stay calm. They sent warnings. They asked the Reluri to leave. And when nothing worked, they sent a final message. Please don't make us mad. It was the last time anyone heard that phrase for a very long time. After that, the colony went silent. So did Earth. No reply to questions, no activity on diplomatic channels, no ships seen on the usual trade routes. The Reluri, proud of their success, celebrated. But some Union species began to worry. Something didn't feel right. Earth was too quiet, too still. The Union sent scouts to investigate. They found the colony destroyed, but not in a way anyone expected. The buildings were untouched. The people were gone, not dead, just missing. Every Reluri ship on the moon was melted from the inside, as if by impossible technology. No alarms had been triggered. No human weapons had been fired. The Union tried to understand, but the data made no sense. All that remained was silence. In that moment, the Union realized something they should have understood from the beginning. Humans meant every word of their warning. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They asked politely. Again and again. And now, they had gone quiet. Not because they were weak, but because they had reached the limit of their patience. The phrase, once laughed at across the stars, now echoed like a distant thunder. Please don't make us mad. It was never meant to be funny. It was not a joke. It was a message. And it had been ignored. After the disappearance of the Reluri fleet and the complete silence from Earth, the Galactic Union grew uneasy. The usual flow of human communication had stopped, and not a single word came from their side. Diplomatic requests were ignored. Trade shipments were neither accepted nor rejected. Human ships vanished from all neutral zones, and even their colonies went dark. No broadcasts, no signals, no activity. This kind of silence wasn't just strange. It was unnatural. The Union had dealt with angry species before. Some shouted, some retaliated with weapons, others protested. But humans did none of that. They simply vanished into their own shadows. A quiet that deep was more terrifying than war drums. Rumors began to spread across the galaxy. Whispers in dark corners of space stations spoke of the phrase that now haunted the Union. Please don't make us mad. Once ignored, now feared. Ambassadors rewatched every human meeting, dissected every word they had overlooked, trying to find clues they'd missed. And still, no answers came. Until finally, the Union decided to act. A special team of investigators, made up of trusted officers from several species, was sent to Earth's nearest colony, the one where the Reluri had landed. It was supposed to be a standard inspection. Land, check the situation, gather data, and return. But when they arrived, the planet below was covered in dense, black clouds. The atmosphere, once stable and calm, was now violent and storm-filled. Their sensors struggled to penetrate the layers. Communication signals bounced back unnaturally. And then, one by one, the scout ships began to fail. Not explode, not get attacked, just fail. Systems shut down, engines froze mid-flight, and screens went blank. No warnings, no reason. One pilot managed to send out a final message before drifting into the thick clouds. They're watching us. After that, nothing more came. The Union called back the rest of the team. Fear began to spread, even among the proudest of species. Back at the Union Council, panic slowly turned into blame. The Reluri were questioned harshly. They denied using force, claimed they only wanted to establish presence and trade routes. They said the humans had overreacted. But no one believed them anymore. Too many things weren't adding up. Meanwhile, several small planets that had recently started trading with Earth reported strange events. Satellites going missing, research labs malfunctioning, starships disappearing from dockyards without trace. And then came the biggest shock of all. A Union military base, one of the largest near human space, went completely dark. No explosion, no distress call, just silence. When a rescue team arrived, they found the base perfectly intact. Every system was working. Every ship was still parked. But there was not a single person inside. Thousands of trained officers gone. No signs of struggle. No blood. Only an eerie message left on every screen in every language the Union used. We warned you. That was when fear truly began to spread. Not the fear of war, but the fear of something unknown. Something far worse. For the first time, the Galactic Union realized they didn't really know the humans. They had studied Earth's history, yes, but always with judgment. They saw chaos, wars, emotions, and thought of it as weakness. But now, they started seeing the pattern they had missed. Humans didn't act immediately when insulted. They didn't strike first. They waited. They watched. And when they did move, it wasn't with rage. It was with terrifying precision. No threats. No noise. Just silence and disappearance. That kind of control didn't come from weakness. It came from power. Deep, terrifying power. The Union called an emergency council meeting. Species that once mocked humans now asked the same question. What happens if Earth decides to respond fully? No one had an answer. Some suggested peace offerings. Others recommended sanctions. A few, still arrogant, suggested preparing for war. But none of them wanted to be the one to trigger the next step. A decision was made to send one last message to Earth, not as rulers of the galaxy, but as equals. The message was humble, apologetic, filled with respect. It admitted past mistakes, offered cooperation, and asked to restore communication. It was sent with the highest level of diplomacy possible. And Earth responded. But it wasn't a message. It wasn't even a call. Instead, one ship appeared in Union space. Just one. Human-built, large and black, with no markings, no identification. It didn't enter a battle zone. It came peacefully, slowing near a neutral space station where Union officials met. It did not fire. It simply broadcast a signal, coordinates, a location in deep space. And then it waited. The Union debated whether to go. Was it a trap? A challenge? A trick? After long arguments, a small fleet was sent to those coordinates, just in case. What they found left them speechless. Floating in the void was something the Union had never seen before. A dead star, once bright, now collapsed and silent. Orbiting it was a ring of satellites, all of human design. But they weren't communication tools. They were weapons, silent, cold, perfectly aligned. They weren't aimed at anything. They just floated, waiting. The fleet scanned them, tried to understand the technology. What they found was terrifying. These satellites didn't need fuel. They didn't need control. They were powered by energy the Union couldn't even identify. One officer whispered, "These are not weapons of war. These are weapons of warning." And at the center of them all was a simple message, engraved into the core of the central station in every galactic language. This is what we built when we were calm. The message sent a chill through every species that read it. If this was what humans created in peace, what would they do in anger? The Union finally understood. The warning had never been about destruction. It had been about restraint, about the terrifying fact that humans, despite everything done to them, had chosen not to fight. They had offered peace again and again. They had been patient, but the galaxy had pushed too far. The calm was over. Now came something else, and it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't come with declarations or invasions. It would be quiet, precise, and unstoppable. The kind of response that didn't need battleships or threats. Just one message, one ship, and one final understanding. The humans had been kind, but they were not weak. And now, the galaxy would learn what it meant when a kind species stopped smiling. For centuries, the Galactic Union had believed it understood every intelligent species in the galaxy. With their vast records, they classified civilizations by traits: aggressive, peaceful, curious, logical. When humans joined, they were placed under emotionally unstable but manageable. The Union had read Earth's history like a file of mistakes, wars, rebellion, and unrest. They laughed at how humans fought each other, burned their own forests, and risked their survival over ideals. No species had such a chaotic record, but they had missed something vital. And now, when humans had stopped speaking, when their ships moved without warning, when even the stars seemed to shiver at their silence, the Union wanted to understand who humans really were. So they did what they should have done long ago. They asked the right question. Not, what have they done? But why did they stop talking? To answer that, the Union appointed an observer named Calvor from the Corellan race, known for their deep intelligence and ability to understand other species' psychology. He had studied the minds of warlords and peacemakers, read thousands of human books, watched their films, learned their languages, but none of it prepared him for what he found. He was allowed to visit Earth, but only as a guest, not a spy. No guards, no weapons, just him and his questions, and the humans welcomed him, politely, with no sign of anger or resentment. That, more than anything, terrified him. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They simply offered tea, a seat, and silence, waiting for him to ask what he needed. It was there, in the quiet, that Calvor began to understand. He traveled across Earth, meeting people from every corner: farmers, soldiers, teachers, doctors, old war veterans, and young inventors. Every human he met had a strange calm in their eyes, a kind of peace that wasn't weak, but earned. They had survived famines, disasters, civil wars, and yet they smiled, not because life was easy, but because they had learned how to live through pain. Calvor listened to stories of grandparents who fought in world wars, parents who rebuilt after destruction, children growing up in chaos and still dreaming of the stars. That was when the truth started to appear, not in what they said, but in how they lived. Humans weren't unstable. They were used to pressure. They didn't collapse under stress. They grew in it, and when pushed too far, they didn't break, they changed. He visited old museums filled with relics of Earth's darkest times. Weapons humans no longer used, flags of broken empires, writings from prisoners who survived horrors beyond imagination. But beside every display of destruction, there was always something else: hope. Poems written in the trenches, songs sung in hidden rooms, stories of people saving strangers in war zones. Calvor realized something incredible. Humans weren't powerful because they were dangerous. They were powerful because they chose not to be. Again and again, history gave them the chance to burn everything. And they rebuilt instead. They had the ability to become monsters, but chose to be better. That choice, made again and again, was the core of their strength. And then came the most shocking discovery. Deep beneath the earth, in a vault protected not by weapons, but by silence, Calvor was shown the Archive, a collection of all things humans had created in preparation for a time they hoped would never come. Weapons far beyond Union technology, ships that could fly without fuel, drones powered by black holes, ideas so advanced they bordered on the impossible. The humans had built them, tested them, and then locked them away. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. They didn't want to win wars. They wanted to avoid them. They believed true strength was not in how much you could destroy, but in how much you could protect. Calvor stood inside that vault, surrounded by the future, and finally understood why humans had warned the galaxy so gently. Outside, children played in the fields. People danced in parks. Artists painted on city walls. Life continued, warm and loud and full of color. But behind every smile, Kelvor now saw the truth. This planet was not soft. These people were not weak. Earth was a forge, and its people were the result of centuries of fire. They had learned kindness through struggle. They had earned peace through pain. And that was why they had said, "Please don't make us mad." Because they knew what they were capable of. Because they knew that if ever they were forced to stop being kind, the galaxy would not survive the version of humanity they had kept locked away. Kelvor returned to the Union, shaken but changed. He stood before the council, his voice firm, his eyes clear, and said the words no one had expected. "You think humans are dangerous. You are wrong. They are patient. You think they are emotional. You are wrong. They are focused. You think they are like us. You are wrong. They are beyond us." He told them of the vaults, of the art, of the quiet strength that held back storms. And then, for the first time in Union history, silence fell not out of control, but out of respect. Every leader in that room saw the humans not as a mistake, but as a mirror, a reflection of what they might become if they ever learned to grow through pain instead of run from it. And in the following days, ships were recalled, weapons were powered down, and messages were sent, not out of fear, but humility. The galaxy had pushed too far, but it had not yet been punished. That chance still remained, because even after all that had happened, Earth had not retaliated. It had waited, it had watched, and it had shown a kind of mercy that only came from deep, ancient strength. The truth about humans was no longer a secret. It was a lesson that every species would remember, that the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were not those who attacked first, but those who waited until they had no choice. And humanity, it seemed, had always been waiting. The galaxy had gone quiet, the kind of silence that only comes after something irreversible has been done. Messages flooded Earth from every corner of the Galactic Union, full of regret, diplomacy, and desperate attempts to repair the damage. They came with official apologies, respectful greetings, and offers of peace. But it was too late. The humans no longer replied. Not because they wanted war, not because they were angry, but because something inside them had changed. For years, they had warned with soft voices, extended hands, and endless patience. They had told the galaxy, again and again, "Please don't make us mad." But no one listened. The Union had mocked those words, saw them as weakness or empty pride. Now, the galaxy was learning that the calmest warnings come from those who know exactly what they are capable of, and wish never to show it. The last straw had been the attack on the colony of Epsilon Terra, a peaceful human world where artists, scientists, and children lived. No military base, no weapons, just people. The attack had been called an unfortunate mistake by the Union, a misfire, a miscommunication. But the humans didn't care about excuses anymore. For them, something had snapped, not in rage, but in decision. They had waited too long, trusted too much, and now they had finally accepted what many feared from the beginning. Peace with the galaxy was never truly possible. It had only been a delay. Across the stars, human ships disappeared from the usual communication grids. No one could trace them. Stations once open to all alien species went dark. Embassies were closed, not in protest, but as a sign. A line had been crossed, and Earth no longer wished to speak. That silence was louder than any war cry. Even the most powerful empires felt it, a pressure, a shadow, something ancient and unstoppable. The Union tried everything. They offered compensation, trials for those responsible, open access to their own secrets, but humans remained silent. Not one leader came forward. Not one diplomat responded. It was as if humanity had folded itself inward, preparing for something the galaxy wasn't ready to face. Some believed they were simply grieving. Others believed they were gathering strength. But the truth was much simpler. They had made a decision. Never again would they beg for peace. Without warning, human ships began to appear, but not in Union territory. They moved to the outer edges of the galaxy, where no law reached, where stars burned wild and unexplored systems floated like lost islands. They didn't invade, didn't attack, but built massive structures in silence. Observers from distant species watched with growing fear. These weren't bases. These were warnings. Floating fortresses, invisible until activated, powered by technology no one understood. The humans didn't need to fire a single shot. The message was clear. We don't need your galaxy anymore. And still, no response came from Earth's leaders. It was the silence of a giant that had finally stood up, not to fight, but to walk away. In panic, the Union sent ambassadors to Earth once more, landing near the old capital, finding streets clean but empty. Nature had returned. Cities were powered and alive, but no humans greeted them. Only screens. One message, short and final, played everywhere they went. We asked you not to push us. We warned you with kindness. Now, we're done talking. No threats. No demands. Just closure. The ambassadors returned with trembling voices, unable to explain how terrifying it was to be ignored by a species so powerful, so capable, and yet so calm. That calm was what shook them most. Humans were not acting out of revenge. They were simply done. As time passed, the consequences grew heavier. Trade collapsed. Technology provided by humans was now locked behind codes. Medical cures, energy generators, star core stabilizers, all lost. The Union, once proud and dominant, began to fall into internal chaos. Factions blamed each other. Some pleaded to go on their knees and beg for forgiveness. Others demanded war, not realizing that even war was no longer an option. How do you fight a species that is no longer interested in fighting back, but simply moving beyond you? Whispers spread across systems about human scientists developing a new kind of engine, capable of breaking the galactic boundary and entering dimensions where time and matter worked differently. The idea that humanity might leave this galaxy behind completely chilled the bones of even the bravest warlords. Not because they feared being left alone, but because they feared what might happen if humans ever returned. And then the unthinkable happened. A fleet of unknown ships appeared near the edge of the galaxy, silent, massive, not built by any known race. The galaxy's most powerful sensors couldn't understand them. Communication attempts failed. Panic spread. For once, every species looked not to the Union, but to Earth, the one species that had faced the impossible and survived. But when they reached out, they got no answer. Earth had gone dark. Not destroyed, not empty, just unreachable. They had activated planetary shielding no one even knew they possessed. And the galaxy, now truly desperate, realized that the only ones who could help them had no reason to care anymore. In those final days, before the unknown threat arrived in full force, one small message was broadcast across the stars from an old human satellite still orbiting a forgotten moon. It said only one thing: you had your chance. No name, no signature, just truth. It was the final goodbye. The Union collapsed not from war, but from guilt and fear. And humanity, perhaps the most misunderstood species in the universe, faded into legend, not as monsters, not as conquerors, but as the ones who warned with kindness and acted with silence. A race that tried peace until peace became impossible. A people who could burn the stars, but chose not to, until they were given no other choice.